Hello Year 10, I hope everybody is well. This is a guide to week 7 of your home learning, just before half term. So this week, as I said at the end of last week, we are going to be having a look at how to use bleach and ink to create textures and to create your artwork. So we're still continuing with developing our ideas in line with the Natural Forms project. So we're really well underway with this project now, and you should be doing lots and lots of experiments. If I say to you, I want you to experiment and do 1 or 2 drawings, I mean complete experiments and then do 2 high quality drawings. I think some of you really need to up the pace and quality, and I will be giving individual feedback in time for half term. So this week, look out for an individual YouTube link which will be sent directly to you, and it'll be a video just about your progress. It'll be me with my laptop in front of me, and it'll be me talking through everything I've received off you so far this term, where you're up to, a predicted grade that I think you're working at, and where we could make some improvements. So this will be a really good chance for you to get some really critical and intense feedback to help you improve anything that you've been working on. Some of you are working really well, and others I think we need to pull our socks up a little bit, but that is fine. So today, like I said, I'm going to show you some techniques on working with bleach and ink. Now I've also included another YouTube video which explains the process and shows the process a little bit further. So there was a really great channel called Fatima's Art Show, and she does all sorts of different tutorials. So I'm going to link that into this as well, because I think that would really benefit you, and it kind of does a step-by-step process. So first of all, what will you need? Well, I mentioned this last week, but you will need a couple of paintbrushes, or like I said, you can use an old makeup brush or the end of something. You'll need some household bleach. This is just a standard super strength bleach. It's really cheap. Most parents' families probably have it in the cupboard. And then you'll need a glass to pour it into. You know, make sure that you're being really careful with this. It is toxic. It is a chemical, but because you're Year 10, I'm trusting you. And I've obviously put this message out in advance. If you don't feel comfortable with this task, you know, please message me, but I would recommend that everyone has a go at this. I've done this a lot of times before with my Year 10s in the past. And it does create some fantastic outcomes. So you might need some water as well. You can dilute your bleach or just to wash your brushes out. I will tell you one important thing that you need to know is if you leave your brush in the bleach for too long, the bristles will start to fall out, and you don't want to do that because it'll ruin your brush. So when you're not using it and you've used it and you just draw it back into your work or something, just pop it in the water, okay? Make sure it's clean. The other thing you might need is, I use some Indian ink for the background of my work, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So some ink, could be fountain pen ink, I already discussed this. It could be not necessarily Indian ink, but just a form of drawing ink. Then the thing that you're going to really need is some different coloured felt tips. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you use anything that's permanent. It doesn't work. It will not make this technique work. So these are really cheap felt tip pens. These are just Crayola ones, but just a cheap felt tip pen, a kid's felt tip pen is fine. And I've gone for black and blue. I've also got some pens I'm going to use after to work into the details. So you might have a general fine liner, or you might want to work back into your drawings with watercolours or any other material to develop your ideas further. But this is all about experimenting. And you'll also need some paper. I've actually done mine on a combination of sketchbook paper, and I've done it on some watercolour paper as well, because it's thicker and it's a slightly different colour, so the technique comes out slightly darker, which I thought was interesting, so you might want to experiment with that. But this is all about experimenting. Bleach and ink technique, you know, you can't predict necessarily how it will fully come out. It is all about being experimental and having some kind of leeway, some room for happy outcomes. So the thing that I did first, and it didn't actually work, so I want to warn you, was I put Indian ink on my backgrounds and then I let it dry. I then tried to add bleach on top. Now that did not work. I think it's because it's Indian ink. If you use drawing ink from a fountain pen, or just standard drawing ink that isn't Indian ink, it might work better. However, I thought, right, I don't want to waste it. I don't want to chuck stuff away, because you should never chuck your art away. There's always a way of saving it or using it and discussing it. So if I was doing this in my sketchbook, I might cut a section out, put the test in and say, look, this didn't work. it didn't work because of this, this and this. Maybe I need to do this, okay? So never chuck things away. Always put them in your book and just add a note next to it and explain it, because that is what you get marks for, showing your development and showing your progression. So it's not gone to waste because I'm going to use it for something. I'm going to stick it in, well, I would stick it in if I was doing it in my book, which you're doing, and then you can add some notes around it. But I'm going to leave that to one side and talk about where I started with my tests. Now, if you don't have ink like this, do not fear, okay? You can create some amazing techniques just with felt tip. So I'm going to talk you through these ones first. So to create these techniques, all I did was simply add my felt tip pen like this. You know, this one's running out a little bit, doesn't matter too much. I added my felt tip pen on, and then I used a smaller brush to start off with. I dipped it in a bit of the bleach. You don't want too much on there, a little bit. And then all I did was apply it gently in some patterns onto my work. And you can see that already a reaction is happening. There is a chemical in bleach which is reacting with the chemicals that are in the felt tip pens. That's why cheap felt tip pens work really, really well, because they're not water resistant. Whereas if you used a marker pen, they are permanent, they don't wash out. But the bleach reacts really well with this. And sometimes, depends on how much you add in, it creates different patterns like that one there. So you can see it's gone more yellowy and more blue. And you might have seen bleached denim before, like denim jeans. It's to do with the chemicals, how it reacts. So you can create some really amazing techniques. So first of all, I want you to do a test sheet. You can label your test sheet. You can put some notes, say, you know, how you created it. And then I want you to keep experimenting. So I also then tried using a blue pen, and I quite like this one because it created a more purpley effect. I started thinking about natural form shapes then when I did this, because I really liked the way that the chemicals reacted and created almost like a shaded effect, like a shadow. And it reminded me of things when they erode. So you might see like rust on metal, when things go rusty and it erodes, it kind of creates this effect. So you could bring that into it. I've also thought about patterns and textures, and I think this works incredibly, and I'm looking forward to developing this idea. So by testing out lots of different techniques, adding different shapes in, you know, all I did was draw in the lines with a black felt tip and then started just applying it in different areas. So I started to work more carefully into this area. I then at the very end decided I wanted more detail, so I just used a normal fine liner. I didn't add any bleach this time, but you can work back into it. It might be that you've got a watercolour palette and you think, right, I really like this technique, but I want to add some more intense colour. So you might, you know, work around the bleach, like I'm doing now, with some watercolour. This is for you to be highly, highly experimentative. I don't want anyone's to look the same. I want it to be really creative. You are developing and using a broad spectrum of materials to meet the standards. You're developing your natural forms concept and being extremely creative. I think this is one of the most fun and impressive processes so far that you'll probably have been introduced to. It really encourages you to experiment. But I don't just want to see one little experiment. You know, I want to see you spend a good couple of hours just in Monday's lesson. All of that probably took me a few hours because I worked quickly. Yeah, I worked really quickly and just thought about shapes. Didn't think about drawing a pretty drawing straight away. Once you've done that for Thursday's lesson, you can then start to further develop specific drawings. But the thing that we're not doing, that you're not doing, and I want to see more of, is really, really developing, practicing, testing. Yeah, GCSE art isn't just about a pretty picture at the end of it. It is about you testing and trialing to get to an outcome. Yeah, you can clearly see this represents natural forms. It should link it into your project in some way. If you looked at Georgia O'Keeffe last week, you'll want to link in her kind of floral patterns. If you looked at Peter Randall Page further, where you really liked his work, you might look at some of his architecture to create some of the almost onion-like shapes. If you looked at Yayoi Kusama, you might take something more like this, like pumpkin kind of shapes with dots. Maybe you're going to bring in a few artists. But I really need to see you doing more of everything and getting outside of your comfort zone and just, you know, clearing the table, getting all your materials out and going, right, this is my table for the next couple of hours. don't focus on the time so much. It is different working at home. You are at an advantage for art because you've got that freedom in a way. You've got time in the afternoon to do this kind of thing. Yeah? So this is what I want you to focus on this week. I'm going to look a bit further into some of the larger ones I did. This was a larger flower that's a work in progress. Yeah, this is not finished because I would really like to make this more detailed. As you can see here, that's getting more decorative. It's starting to look high quality because I want you to produce two outcomes that will go on your board that really show high quality. And that is what I mean. That took quite a long time just to work over that, and I worked back into it. I came back to it. These are starting to get better, but all of this is a work in progress. Think about this mark making technique. That was layered techniques over the top of each other. Again, I used ink as a background base. You don't have to use ink as a background. If you are going to use ink, you want it to be watered down. You don't want it to be that dark, because as you can see, and like on my failed attempt, it doesn't really come out that well. I've worked back into that one a few times to even get that darker section. But again, it is trial and error. The only way that this is going to work is bleach, water, and some cheap felt tip pens, maybe ink for the background. Like I said, if you are adding ink to the background because you want this dark effect, make sure it's kind of watered down like that. You need to leave it to dry then for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's completely dry. Otherwise, you won't be able to work on top of it with the felt tips. Obviously, make sure your felt tips are clean as well. You don't want ink all over them or bleach. Yeah. Wait till things are dry if you need to. Work on another section. Yeah. Work on several pieces at the same time, because that is how your ideas will start flowing. Also, use the internet. There's some incredible examples. If you type into Google natural forms shapes or natural forms art or bleach and ink drawing with natural forms, there's some incredible examples using onions and that kind of thing. So that is a really, really successful thing. You could also combine the two. You might say, I want to try a purple felt tip. I want to try a red felt tip. Yeah, they will also create a texture and a pattern. You might add in watercolour like I did. You might work back into it with a pen like I did. You might add pencil. I want you to be really expressive and creative. But the volume, as in the amount of work I expect, is several pages like this. Lots of tests, lots of experiments that are labelled, lots of final outcomes, and then 2 really good high quality final outcomes. I hope that is clear, Year 10. Like I said, I will be giving you individual feedback throughout the week. I am individually recording videos, so it will take me a long time to get through the whole class. But in time for half term, every single one of you will have that feedback. So please make sure that you are monitoring that, and that will be your homework basically for half term, is to really, really take on board that feedback. And I will be then asking you to send me all of your work again from the last several weeks, and I'll be seeing what improvements have been made. It might be 1 or 2 pieces you don't need to improve. It might be several, but you'll have that half-term week to start working on it. But hopefully that is clear on the bleach and ink drawing technique. Any questions, any problems, please let me know, but watch this video carefully. Also, have a look on the internet for inspiration and have a look at Fatima's art show. But the thing I want is lots of development, lots of detail, and then some really good high quality outcomes at the end. Hope that is all clear for you, Year 10. Have a fantastic week, and I will catch up with you on Thursday and give you a message. I do want this uploaded on Monday by 4 p.m. The experiments must be uploaded on Monday by 4 p.m. I hope that's clear. Take care, Year 10. Bye.